Right, good evening everybody. Wow, do we have plenty to talk about tonight. Yes, good evening. Hope your Thursdays have all been well. Mine's been, well, very eventful. Making sure, with lots of news coming out and making sure I'm across it as much as possible, which is kind of why we've gone back to a live show for tonight, because I would love to get your thoughts in the live chat this evening on the women's football chat, because there is a lot to discuss, from proposed changes to the pyramid to expulsion if teams don't meet minimum standards, and a lot to go through. Good evening to you, Marcus. Is this worrying times for the FAWNL and the rest of the women's football pyramid? I think there is cause for concern, and it is something that I saw coming as soon as sides were put into as soon as PGA sides were put into the plate. That always to me seemed to be a feeder for where they could fit into the pyramid, and now we have our answer. So what I'm going to do, because we've still got all the usual stuff to go through on this week's show, so the plan is I am going to quickly go through, because there's not a lot, the 8 results from the FAWNL over the past 7 days, and the tables and all of that, and then a quick look ahead to what we can expect this weekend, and then hopefully by about 8:15 we'll get really into the nitty gritty of what's come out today. So it will be a quick go through with everything else that's normally on the show, and then we'll really get into it. So you've got time to come up with your questions, read the article from The Guardian if you haven't had the chance already, and come up with some opinions. Do put them in the chat. I think we could have a really great discussion tonight amongst ourselves about what could happen in the FAWNL. So let's get straight down to it. Northern Premier Division, Liverpool Feds 0, Rugby Borough 0, Rugby Borough dropping points. Nottingham Forest, a very narrow win over Sporting Cowser, nowhere near as comfortable as I thought it would be. 16 minutes from time, Katie Dungate with the goal for Forest, giving them the 3 points. Stoke City beating Hull City by 3-0. Goals to Olivia Cook, Shannon Stamps and Delphi Cole. Relatively comfortable for Stoke at home. The Black Country Derby, Wolves winning that one significantly by 7-2 away at Stourbridge. Even though Stourbridge, they have 3 goals put on full time. Isn't that good? So their goals, according to Flash Scores as well, Gwen Horgan and Olivia Ashfield. For Wolves, 4 for Amber Hughes, who now races ahead in the Golden Boot race in the Northern Premier Division, and Charlotte Greengrass with a hat-trick as well. And then Halifax 2, West Bromwich Albion 3. Megan Cardenas and Sienna Limbert for Halifax. Simran Jamat, Rhiannon Oakley and Francesca Orthodoxou for West Brom. What it means for the table, the only movement is Stoke going above Rugby, with Rugby dropping points. They are now 9 away from Forest at the top of the table. They have 1 game in hand. That still puts them 6 back. They will need to get some wins in that mini league at the top as the second time around comes in February. So Forest remain a point clear of Wolves, who are 6 clear of Burnley, but Burnley have 2 games in hand. Stoke up to 4th. Everything towards the bottom remains the same. Southern Premier Division, great result this for Gwalior United, a 1-1 draw with Exeter City. Their goals, it was a penalty to Chloe Lloyd, the goal for Gwalior United. Molly Taylor in the 11th minute had put Exeter in front, and Watford beat Plymouth by 4-0 away from home. Ellie Head in the 14th minute, Jessie Gale in the 44th minute, Bianca Baptiste 64th minute, and Megan Chandler 66th minute. For the table then, Watford are in that mini kind of group of 3 with Wimbledon and Oxford United. They jump up 2 places again, having dropped last week. Gwalior United, that point lifts them back out of the relegation zone on goal difference. Plymouth Argyle dropping back into it, and Gwalior do have a game in hand as well. Division 1 Midlands then, Barnsley Women's beating Solihull Moors by just 1-0. Laura Bartup, 14 minutes from time, the difference in that one. There's no movement in the Division 1 Midlands table because of that. Barnsley Women's stay in 6th. They move from 19 points and in 6th to 22 points and in 6th. Solihull Moors stay where they are in 11th. And in South West, Maidenhead United 0, Bournemouth 3. Goals for Bournemouth in this one to Katie James, Gemma McGuinness and Amber Treweek. What that means for the table is that Bournemouth move up to second. They have a perfect 10 from 10. They are 1 point off the top of the table with 5 games in hand. Maidenhead United remain 7 points clear of the relegation zone. So those are all of the results from the past 7 days. Let's go ahead and have a look at the fixtures coming up, and then we'll get into all the changes and everything else. So Northern fixtures then for this weekend. Burnley in 3rd, hosting Stourbridge, who are down in 11th. Rugby Borough, who are 5th, take on Halifax, down in 12th. Wolves in 2nd take on Derby, who are 7th, and West Bromwich Albion against Liverpool Feds is 8th against 6th. So so chance for Wolves and Burnley. Wolves can overtake Forest, and Burnley can close that gap as well. You would expect both of those sides to win this weekend. It's going to be difficult for teams towards the bottom. I mean, Halifax travelling to Rugby as well is going to be difficult for them. So you would expect the status quo to pretty much be maintained in the Northern Premier Division. Southern Premier Division, just 2 games. Gwalior United against Ipswich Town is 10th against 2nd, and Watford against Lewes is 4th there against 7th. So 2 sides that are kind of mid-table really. Watford arguably too far back to maintain a real title challenge. Ipswich with a chance to go back top and with 2 games in hand with #United not playing in the league. Gwalior United could get further away from the relegation zone. Will they? It's going to be very tough for them to do so. Division 1 Midlands, 5 games in this one. Lincoln City against Sutton Coldfield Town, which for some reason has the Solihull Moors logo against it. So Lincoln City there at the bottom, Sutton Coldfield Town in 8th. Lincoln United against Notts County, 9th against 7th. Peterborough United against Barnsley Women's is 2nd against 6th. Worcester City against Leafield Athletic, 10th against 3rd. And Boldmere St Michael's, who are in 5th, against Loughborough Lightning, who are 4th. So again, Loughborough Lightning, opportunity to keep that pressure on towards the top. There is no Northampton this weekend. So this is one of Loughborough's games in hand against them. It is, again, I mean, the Midlands is shaping up to be one of the better leagues. Northampton getting a little bit far away. Loughborough, I think, probably going to be the biggest challengers to them. If they can win their 3 games in hand, that puts them on to 37. Of course, one of their games in hand, as we've said for a while, is against Northampton Town. That's their game in hand against Peterborough, so that's going to be a really interesting game, and it should be a good weekend of league action in Division 1 Midlands. In the North, there are 4. North, of course, the tightest league by a mile in the FAWNL this year. Top of the table, Cheadletown Stingers. They host Middlesbrough, who are 4th and have games in hand on them and are only 4 points behind them. Huge game there at the top of Division 1 North. Doncaster Rovers Bells against York City. Huge game towards the bottom. They're both on 10. Only goal difference separates them. 10th and 11th. Huddersfield Town against Leeds United, 5th against 3rd. So again, 2 teams that are still very much in the hunt at the top. They're coming up against each other. And Stockport County against Durham Sestra, 8th against 6th. Durham Sestra a little bit in no man's land. They're too far away from those teams at the top. They are still kind of looking over their shoulders towards the bottom, but they have a bit of a buffer there, a 2-win buffer between themselves and the bottom 2. Stockport County only 1 point above the drop zone, so it's a big game for them. Division 1 South East, 4 games here as well. Chesham United against Cambridge United. That is 10th against 7th. Chesham, of course, 4 points clear of the bottom 2. Norwich City in 4th against Dulwich Hamlet in 9th. Queen's Park Rangers, who are in 8th against London Bees in 5th. And Rail Bedford, who are in 2nd, take on AFC Sudbury, who are in 6th. So the bottom 2 not in action this weekend. This is one of Chesham United's games in hand on London Seaward. You look at the league table, you go 10th against 7th, it's an opportunity. You look at the points, there's an 11-point difference between those sides. So again, could be difficult for Chesham, but a good opportunity. You would feel that a win, looking at the games that those other teams have still got left to play, if Chesham were to get a win, that's probably South East done. Right, and then Southwest finally, 4 games, and then we will really get into what the crux of today's show is all about. Abingdon United against Bridgewater United, 9th against 7th. Bournemouth Sports against Maidenhead United, that is 10th against 8th. So those sides that are all kind of flirting, maybe not Bridgewater and Maidenhead anymore, but particularly Abingdon and Bournemouth Sports, both at home against teams that they could feasibly beat, and a big opportunity for them to put some gap between themselves and the bottom 2. Moneyfields in 3rd take on Bristol Rovers, who are in 6th, and Southampton Women's face Worthing. Southampton Women's bottom of the table at the moment, Worthing in 5th in Division 1 South West. Just finally, the reason we've got some games missing, it is the Cup and Plate semi-finals this weekend. In the Cup, Plymouth host Stoke, and #United take on Nottingham Forest. So we've got in one semi-final the team in 11th in the Southern Premier Division against the team who is currently 4th in the North. So you would think that Stoke would be the favourites in that one, although they have got quite a travel down. And then the other semi-final, top of the Southern Premier Division in #United and defending champions of the Cup against top of the Northern Premier Division, Nottingham Forest. The side who are trying to get the Cup back after winning it in 2023. And then in the Plate, and this is kind of a precursor to what we're going to be going into, Cheltenham Town of the Southern Premier Division hosting a PGA side and in Southampton, and Bournemouth, who of course second in Division 1 South West, hosting a PGA side in Manchester United. Best case scenario, Cheltenham and Bournemouth win. Worst case scenario, Southampton and Manchester United win. But PGA sides in the Plate is kind of a bit of a precursor to what we are going to be talking about on this week's show. So that's all the formalities out the way for what we normally talk about on the Women's Football Chat. What we are going to do now is go into, for the next maybe 40 minutes or so, is what came out today from The Guardian about this proposed introduction, and this is the title: proposes introduction of WSL and Championship B teams in lower tiers. Plan would come into effect for the 26-27 season. Tiers 3 and 4 would expand to 14 teams. Essentially, there is the proposal that we are going to have B teams within tiers 3 to 6 of the pyramid. They are going to expand the leagues, and there are a load of rules that come into it as well, in terms of no B team can be within 2 tiers of their first team. No B team can play higher than tier 3, and all bits and pieces like this. So what I thought we'd do is have a go through really of what the FA are proposing, what that could mean for teams currently in the FAWNL, what it is likely to mean over the next few years. So we're going to start with no changes are proposed for next season. Proposed changes are going to take effect for the 26-27 season, which is the year after next, which gives teams time to prepare and has competition integrity, because the clubs must know prior to the start of the season the promotion and relegation. So, in a nutshell, divisions are being expanded from 12 to 14, and we are having a playoff in tiers 4 and 5. And I think 6 as well from memory, but obviously that's below the remit of this show. So we'll start with Tier 3, that's easy. There is no change coming between the Super League, the Championship and Tier 3. So it's 2 down from the Championship, and the champions of Tier 3 go up into the Championship. That's it, they're staying as 12. In Tier 3, they are expanding to 14, which is going to be solved by essentially there's going to be no changes from Tier 3 to Tier 2, as I've said. The bottom 2 teams next season will be relegated as per, but the top 2 from each of the Tier 4 leagues, so let's take the Northern Premier for example, the top 2 from Division 1 North and the top 2 from Division 1 Midlands will get promoted. So 2 will go up, only 1 will come down. That sorts Tier 3 out. So that's how they get to 14. Then in Tier 4, we currently have 48 sides in Tier 4. We will then have 56 sides in Tier 4 when they all go to 14. So from 26-27, first place in each division from Tier 4 will be promoted into Tier 3, as they are now. Second place from each division in Tier 4 will enter a playoff. 6 teams will be promoted in total, so 3 teams will come down from Tier 3, and we will have 6 in total, so we'll have 3 teams from the North and Midlands half and 3 teams from the South East Southwest part go up into Tier 4. The playoff will obviously between the 2 sides that come second in like the North and the Midlands. So if we take that as it is right now, it would be a playoff between Chorley and Peterborough United if it was to be as it is right now. And then 3 teams will come down. Now what that means is that every single year in Tier 4, one of the Tier 4 divisions, say it's the North, will get 2 teams from the Northern Premier, and the Midlands will only get 1, or vice versa. That means every single season there is going to have to be some lateral movement to balance the leagues up again. Now the playoff is great. You know, people who've been watching a while, they know I want a playoff, and I'd love to, again, in the live chat this evening, put your thoughts in, because I'm fascinated to see what everybody is thinking about this. So I think we're going to end up with more teams potentially not knowing what league they're playing in next year than they do now. But I think that is on the whole a positive and something that's easily workaroundable. The one negative from what I've spoken about so far is I would like to have seen a Super League and a Championship expansion. Those leagues, of course, are no longer under the FA control, so that might just not have been possible. So we need an extra 12 teams to go into Tier 4, because there are 8 more spaces, but we are losing 4 teams going up into Tier 3 for their expansion. So 12 vacancies. And this is where things start to go downhill, in my opinion. 6 slots of the 12 would be allocated to Tier 5 teams additional to the Championship clubs. Fine, not a problem with that. PGA teams would take up 6 slots based on an application process. So from the 26-27 season, we are getting 6, up to 6, depends on the applications of course, but up to 6 PGA sides into Tier 4. They are going to be in the league playing these sides week in, week out. And we have seen in the plate how sides can do against tier 4 sides and the occasional tier 3 side. That is a concern to me. We'll then move through into tier 5, which is staying at 96, 8 divisions. They are staying at 12 teams in tier 5. So 6 teams, because of the 6 additional that are moving up, there's the vacancies. PGA sides are taking 2 spots from that, and the rest are being allocated to tier 6 teams. And then again from 26-27 there is going to be that playoff. 3 teams will be relegated from each tier 4 club, from each tier 4 league into tier 5, and that will create 4 extra promotion spots in tier 5 decided by a playoff. And then in tier 6 there are currently 16 divisions and 198 squads. They want to turn that, the FA, into 24 divisions of 10 teams, which is up to 52 vacancies, 16 PGA sides and 36 WNL reserve teams, with each league having 1 promotion spot into tier 5. So they are proposing up to 24, i.e. a PGA side for every team in the Super League and the Championship, and then 36 WNL reserve teams, which is essentially every tier 3 side plus then 8 tier 4 sides, going into the pyramid at step 6. Now, playing in the pyramid is one solution, and apparently this is all coming about for youth development and things like that. Each club might need something different, so multiple solutions might be needed if WNL reserve teams don't wish or are unable to join the pyramid, such as going to a college league, a JPL under 18 league, a club arranged program, or dual registrations like, loans like the men's teams do. But yes, we have the possibility of having a lot of PGA sides into the women's football pyramid. All of these proposals that have been put forward, in my view, could have been done without the introduction of PGA sides. I do not think that PGA sides being in the pyramid is the answer. We know what people's thoughts are on having the junior teams and the reserve teams playing in amongst the first teams. We've seen it in the plate this season. This is not just limited to women's football either, because we have seen it in the men's game. Look at how poorly attended all EFL trophy games are with under 23 sides in there. I just do not think that this is the answer, and my concern is there are so many rules that are going to be put in around this. For example, you cannot be your B team cannot be fewer than 2 tiers behind you. So if you're a Super League side, your B team can be in tier 3. If you're a Championship side, your B team can only be in tier 4. It is therefore plausible, for example, that if a Championship side, and let's say for argument's sake it's Portsmouth, purely because they're the first team I thought of down towards the bottom of the Championship, if Portsmouth's B team are in tier 4 after a couple of years and Portsmouth get relegated from the Championship, Portsmouth's B team, by their own laws, have to then be relegated to tier 5 no matter where they finish in tier 4. They could finish 3rd in tier 4 and end up being shoved down into tier 5 because the first team got relegated. And I'm looking at which teams do we think are going to slot straight into tier 4. You would imagine they're the Super League sides. You look at the geography of the teams in the Super League. You've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Palace at the moment, West Ham, Spurs, all in London, Brighton, South East as well. Liverpool, Everton, Man City, Man U would all be Division 1 North. There's only then Leicester in the Midlands. So I think the balance is going to be off. How it's going to play out, I don't know. Seeing how well teams have played in the plate, I am concerned that Super League PGA sides that go into Tier 5 and sides that go into Tier 6, because based on this current model, there will be 4 Super League PGA sides that go into Tier 6. My concern is that they will do very well in those leagues, because we have seen how very well they can do in the plate, come straight up through the leagues, and we'll end up with Tier 4 having 4, maybe 5 B teams in it each that then can't progress. So what happens then? Do we end up promoting the team that finished 4th, finished 5th in the league, because we can't promote the PGA sides because they're not allowed to be within 2 to be within 2 leagues of their first team? Presumably the B teams will not be eligible for things like the FA Cup. So when it's FA Cup weekend, is that just where they're going to be scheduled to play each other? We've also seen from the plate how few of these sides actually meet ground criteria and have had to either switch the draw, or they've all been played at the FAWNL team's ground. I think there's a lot here that needs sorting out, and the opportunity for it to get extremely messy. Marcus, this all seems to be following the same model as the men's game. We know how much the Premiership supports the men's football pyramid. The WPLL, which is the company that now controls the top 2 leagues, seem to want their cake and eat it. They want their reserve teams in the women's football pyramid, but are not willing to expand the WSL and the Championship to include the hard-working WNL teams. And I think you're very right there, Marcus. I think there is this. It still feels a very closed shop. Now, the FA, for their credit, a playoff system, more promotion and relegation, a more fluid pyramid, that's great. And then you get to Tier 3 and it just grinds to a halt. And it's going to make Tier 3 even harder to get out of, because there are going to be more teams in there contesting Tier 3 for one spot. It's very, very difficult. My only crumb of comfort that I'm clinging on to is this expansion going to then be a precursor for a Super League and Championship expansion in the future? But this is 26-27, so you're talking to give this a year to sort itself out, plus you've then got to go, okay, that works, we'll expand as well. Then you've got to give, as they have done here, notice, and then a year to get the pyramid going so everybody knows what the promotion and relegations are going to be. So realistically, you're looking at any expansion to the top 2 leagues being the 29-30 season. So you're talking 5 years from now, and I don't know how long these clubs that are putting the money in now and pushing to go up now will be able to keep doing that when it feels like there's a ceiling at the top of Tier 3. I do not know the makeup of other Tier 4 clubs. I'm sure some of our players might be lost to a WSL team too. There is that concern as well, but I don't think that saying we haven't got enough development opportunities for our young players, our reserve leagues are a mess, our PGA league doesn't work, I know what we're going to do, we're going to shove them in with a load more first teams. I do not see how that is going to work. We're going to have to find many more grounds that meet criteria in order to suit these teams. And let's talk about that, because it has also come out today from Talking Woso that clubs are at risk of expulsion from the FA Women's National League ahead of next season if they fail to meet the minimum standards. The set of 10 minimum standards, termed Safe to Operate, was introduced for this season, with clubs initially being given feedback and a compliance score in November, along with a list of any required actions by January the 31st. We of course are now on January the 23rd. Following January the 31st, clubs will be informed whether they are considered safe to operate, as well as their compliance score. Any clubs who do not meet the Safe to Operate standards by the end of this month will be at risk of being removed from the FAWNL ahead of the 25-26 season, and will be required to present to the FAWNL minimum standards panel at Wembley in February. Clubs are expected to meet all 10 standards at all times to be considered safe to operate. So that, to me, I don't know what the 10 minimum standards are. We are trying to find out what the 10 minimum standards are. But that, it sounds like things like, is there adequate stewards? Are there adequate ways of getting out if there's an emergency? Can you get the emergency services in? Things like that. And as I said earlier, we know that some sides are struggling. The PGA sides were struggling this year to find a ground able to host these games. We've now got to find a load more than that, and we've got extra fixtures. We're going back up to 4 midweek fixtures. The proposal is for that first season. 7 spare weeks for postponements. The Cup and Plate, they want to play the quarterfinals in the first week of December and be down to the last 4 clubs by the first week of December. Bearing in mind we've got all the FA Cup stuff in there as well, so we're going to have the same old issue of clubs playing cup all through November and December. I think it just, to me, it has the potential to get really, really messy. My fear is that the Premiership has enriched an elite few, doing nothing for EFL, NL, and below. Oh, they're talking about the men's game here. The Premier League has enriched an elite few, doing nothing for the Football League, the National League, and below. And then the WPLL will do exactly the same. The FA caused this and seems to be following the same mistakes. I was a little bit concerned as soon as that takeover got announced, but then I also thought, hey, it's great. It means the FA can really dial in and focus on the FAWNL and below, which with this it feels like they're doing. I don't feel like this is the solution, and I still don't feel like they've particularly focused on the FAWNL with the current social media output and all bits and pieces like that. It's a difficult one. Again, I'd love to get your thoughts in the live chat. Good evening to you, Steve. The geographical imbalance seems very unfair. Only Bristol City and Southampton B would go into Division 1 South West, and neither would be eligible for promotion as things stand. Yeah, I mean, that again, Steve, that comes back to the point I made a bit ago, and thank you for bringing it up. You've got teams here. If your PGA side, if your first team side is in the Championship, you cannot progress higher than Tier 4. Now, I would suspect Bristol City and Southampton B, unless the FA were very keen to spread the PGA sides around, I would suspect that a Liverpool, Everton, Man City, Man U, 1 or 2 of those will go north. You would suspect, of course, if Leicester City were to want a PGA side, they would go into the Midlands. Your Chelsea's, your Arsenal's South East. Do you then flood South East because there are a lot of London clubs, or do you spread it around and you put Championship PGA sides into Southwest, as you've highlighted here, Bristol City, Southampton, do you put them into Southwest, and then you've got straight away a 14 team in Southwest where 2 of them can't go up? What does that do? And we've seen in the plate how good Southampton are. They're in the semi-final. They're coming up against Cheltenham. They could arguably do very well in Southwest. Not saying that they would be, winning it and rolling over everybody, but they could be right up there, and potentially, if they get second, what happens to the playoff if a team that can't get promoted gets second in the league? Is the playoff then between third in the league? Is it between, does it go down to fourth in the league? Do they just not bother with the playoff and the other team goes through? How are they going to decide that? That's nothing that's come out yet. It is still under consultation, of course. I'm sure they'll iron all this out. But, it could get very, very messy. Marcus, again, ground grading is fair enough. Suspect that's what the tweet was about. It's been in the men's game for years. Yes, it has. But I know some clubs were struggling with ground grading from tier 5 up to tier 4. They had to do a lot of work. I remember Bournemouth Sports being one. They had to do a lot of work to meet that ground grading. I totally understand the ground grading. We've got no idea. It might be that all 72 clubs currently in the FAWNL have met all the standards and it's a bit of a non-issue. It might be that quite a lot aren't meeting them. So if they all have to drop down, let's say there's 4, they all drop down. Do they drop down as well as the relegated teams and we bring even more from tier 5 up? Do they drop down instead of the relegated teams? We've still got the issue, of course, of there's only 11 teams in the championship. Only one is going to come down. Somebody is not going to... at the moment, it's Portsmouth. So the Northern Premier Division isn't going to get a team dropping into it. So do you save 11th? And then that's how you build your 12 up again. But then who's in 11th? Well, at the moment it's Stourbridge. Well, that's in the Midlands. If they don't drop down, does then 11th in the Midlands stay up? It's going to be very messy. We're going to see what happens probably in July when the FA announces who's in what league, to set this up for next year. For 26-27. So they have a lot of time to sort this out. And that is really the crux of the issue. There's a lot of stuff that could happen, could be messy, and I'm not convinced that this is going to be the right way of doing it. I mean, as I said at the start, as soon as it was announced that PGA sides were coming into the plate, I said to a few of the people that I talk to regularly about women's football, and I said, this is them feeling where PGA sides can go into the pyramid. We've now learnt where they think they can go into the pyramid. I am concerned that in 3 or 4 years' time we are going to have tier 4 leagues with 3 or 4 sides in them that cannot go up. So that's kind of where we're at, really. And now, well, I suspect we will hear nothing for a long time. There are opportunities for clubs to engage over the next couple of months. The decision-making process is in March and April with a potential announcement of any changes. So we sit tight and we wait and we see what happens. That's kind of where we're at, really. Seaside Coast, completely ridiculous to have to wait 5 years for the WSL to expand. Yes, it is. There is no evidence to that. That is that is entirely my estimation. That is another good point. So, yeah, I'll finish Seaside's point and then I'll go to yours, Marcus, again. The 5 years for the WSL span is entirely an estimation on the basis that next year is the preparation for these changes. Then the year after that, these changes get implemented. We have to see for a year if they work. It will then be this time the year after that that they go, okay, we're going to expand the Super League and the Championship. And then they need a year there where teams know what the promotion and relegation is before it then takes effect that next year. And that again is my complete estimation of when we are likely to see an expansion. So in 5 years' time, so we are likely to see an expansion. I mean, that makes it even worse, doesn't it? Because that makes it sound like the expansion is going to be the 30-31 season. What are the 10 minimum standards? Don't know. Trying to find that out. If I do find that out, I'll put it on my social medias. But I'm trying to find out what those 10 standards are. That only came out at 7 o'clock, and we went live at 8 here. So I agree about PGA teams. We also have not mentioned funding of 4 new games each season, 2 home, 2 away. Yeah, that was a concern as well, wasn't it? Among the potential challenges that these sides would have to face is what are the potential problems? Well, you've got extra coach trips, extra, the costs of 2 extra games, more midweek games. Are the pitches going to be available? All the bits such as that. And the PGA teams will not have a good away following. No, FAWNL clubs need their fan base to pay for ground rentals, etc., and travel to away games. And I get that as well. The FAWNL sides, they need away fans to come in and supplement to help pay for the rentals and everything like that, because not everybody in the FAWNL are your Forests, your Wolves, your Ipswiches, your Burnleys with lots of money behind them. Nobody is going, I don't think, to follow the B teams. Very few, other than parents, are going to follow the B teams. So they're not going to get the money in. They're not going to provide a good following. Other than getting game experience, what have these PGA sides got to fight for if they can't get promoted, if they get to their ceiling? And then again, we're going to have a shake-up every single year when a Super League side comes down into the Championship. Oh no, their B team was in Tier 3. Well, they've got to hot-foot it now. Where do you slot them in? Into Tier 4? Same with the Championship. You took them out the FAWNL. I think there's a lot of polishing of this to do before it can be implemented. There are a lot of problems that I feel have been, this is coming in 26-27. That PGA side is being shoved in Tier 6, so that's not going to be a potential problem until at least 28-29. We don't need to think about that yet. I would argue that you do. I would say that you do need to think about it. It's, as I said, I think a lot of polishing needs doing. There is going to be this consultation process. I think there are 2 problems for me. One, they've not expanded the Super League and the Championship, so this great new playoff promotion, which is great in itself, stops at Tier 3, which means we're going to get a backlog of teams at the top of the pyramid structure. I mean, it tells you everything you need to know when the document with the pyramid structure on it, the point is at Tier 3, not at Tier 1. I don't like PGA sides being in. These vacancies could have been filled without PGA sides, particularly in Tier 4 and Tier 5. Into Tier 6, I can sort of get it. Still don't agree with it, sort of get it. I'm very concerned that when you get down to Tier 6, the PGA sides, because we've seen how good they can do against Tier 4 teams, They wouldn't hammer tier 6 every week, but I think they'd do very well and quickly try and move up the pyramid. And the biggest consideration at all of them all, and if you've got any more comments about anything we've said tonight, get them in now before I wrap up. And it's a slight tongue-in-cheek point, but the biggest non-consideration of them all is that my whiteboard is perfectly designed for 12 teams in each league, and I'm going to have to rub everything out, remeasure the lines, redraw all of the lines for 14 teams in a league. And it's going to have to be wiped completely clean and done again, and that takes quite a while. Thank you, FA. No, I joke, of course, but yeah, that will about do it for this week's episode. It's been great to get so many of your comments in throughout the course of the evening. I would love to, if you haven't got any in over the course of this evening, or you've not really felt confident enough to go into the live chat. I appreciate some people are. Let's take Jack, for example, who's just jumped in on Twitter. He's put a thumb up emoji against expanding tiers 3 and 4. B teams in the pyramid, I'm not so sure. Which, yeah, it is just covering exactly what I've said there over the course of the last 40 minutes or so. So we wait and see if anything happens over the next few months with regards to that. We'll put that to one side just for the next few weeks or so. Of course, we've got plenty of FAWNL action. We need to show all our love and support to Cheltenham Town and AFC Bournemouth this weekend as they try to get through to the plate final. Again, I've said it weeks before, if it is a final between Manchester United and Southampton, you will not hear anything about it from me. Next week, Seaside Coast, Bournemouth Sports haven't met the ground grading yet. Yes, they told me in summer when I interviewed them for this show that they were struggling, and well, you've said everything you need to know then. I bet they're not the only ones as well. Next week's show, big announcement coming in next week's women's football chat. Very excited about that one, so do make sure you are around for that. It'll be 8 p.m. next Thursday, and yeah, you do not want to miss next week's show. Best of luck to Bournemouth and Cheltenham, and of course the 4 teams in the Cup semi-finals. I've got a horse in that, as of course being from the Nottingham area, having worked for Forest, and if Forest get to the final, I get live commentary on the BBC. So that's my horse in that final. Thank you very much for being with me this evening. I've managed to finish in enough time for everyone to just get themselves together before the penultimate episode of The Traitors, which has left me hooked all January long. I'll be back next Thursday at 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for being with me, and goodbye.